So today I'm going to light the candle, I think. Okay, well, let's pretend that I've lit it. And it's appropriate because I was lighting the candle for family, which is both our greatest love and our greatest challenge. So that's been our challenge, and today it's about letting this challenge happen. So we are all each other's teachers and students, right? Because life is all about relationship. Even God has relationship, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, spirit, mind, and body. Buddha has 3 levels, basically the etherical, the emotional, and the physical. Even within ourselves, there's a relationship. We have our inner critic, right, and our inner guide and our inner child, and some of us have full 7 dwarfs, running around in there. So we're in relationship all of the time, in all ways, spiritually and physically in life. And why is this so important? Why is relationship so important? Because relationship provides the 2 essential things for life: love and growth. Even as babies, when a baby is born, what does it need? Love and growth. Babies are so cute, I think, because they need this love, and they're so cute that we can't help but love them and cuddle them. We forget all about the other late night stuff that goes on and all of that because they're so adorable and so cute. We just love them, and they grow like a pound and an inch every week. Their whole life is about getting love, giving love, and growing. Until it starts to recognize the difference between itself and everyone else. When a baby is very tiny, it's the whole world. The whole world is right there. But as that child grows, it begins to distinguish between you and me and a boundary. It begins to learn what expectations are, both its expectations and expectations of it, right? It starts to set up this separation of the you and the me and what's expected and what's not. And as a little child, some days it will go, and it's just looking at what is today. And pretty soon that inner critic drops in. Although the child doesn't realize it's an inner critic, it thinks it's an inner guide, because after all, it's just saying the facts, right? So it thinks. And it'll say things like, today, Mommy's happy with me. Yesterday, she wasn't so happy with me. In fact, she got really angry when I drew a picture in my room. Now that I didn't have any paper and that picture happened to be on the wall, but it was beautiful. But I guess she didn't think it was that beautiful. So I guess I won't draw any more pictures, right? Because it doesn't make Mom very happy. So I'll stop drawing pictures. And by the way, I have siblings, and the other day Mom was really proud of Brother Freddie because he won the ball game. But I'm not so good at ball, so I guess she isn't going to be proud of me. And then we go to school. And Jane is so beautiful and so popular. Everyone wants to be her friend. And I'm just sort of normal. I'm not that beautiful, and I'm not that popular. So my friends are kind of limited. And to boot, the other day, I got an A on the test, and everybody started calling me an egghead and a nerd. And now I don't have any friends. So I guess if I want to get some friends, I better not get any more A's, and I better pay more attention to my hair and my clothes than my homework. And so the child pretends for a while that he or she is not so smart. And what's important to get acceptance is how she looks, or certain things that she does. And after a couple years of pretending, we forget we're pretending. Right? And along the way, a few other things happen that are traumatic for a child. And as we all know, trauma is very close to hypnotism. And when we're hypnotized, we're very open and vulnerable to suggestion, right? Even silly, ridiculous suggestion. We're very open to it. So all of these little things that happen in our life that were traumatic at whatever age we were very open to whatever kind of suggestion was made to us, whether it really was made or we perceived it. I remember when I was about 10, maybe younger, I loaded the dishwasher one night, and my mother must have been in a bad mood or something was going on in her life. And my father was really ill in those years, so it probably had absolutely nothing to do with me. But I loaded it, and she didn't like the way I loaded it. And she said something like, that's the stupidest way she ever saw it loaded, or something to that effect. I understood it that I was the stupidest person in the world that she had ever met. I'm sure that's not what she said, but that's what I understood at that age until I got older and started talking about it and realizing that isn't what she meant, and she didn't even remember ever saying it. So we take these traumas in by our own perceptions and our own judgments. And, the perceptions or the mood that people were in when we were with, and whatever mood we were in, and maybe I had done something stupid earlier too, and put it all together. So we all have these little weird things that looking back, oh, that's ridiculous. I told my husband that story. He says, that's just plain silly. Why would you ever think that? Well, if you're 8, 9, or 10, you might. So we all have these things as we're growing up and we put into our life. We learn how to behave. We go, okay, each one of us, if I act a certain way, if I behave a certain way, if I think a certain way, and if I feel a certain way, I'll get all that good stuff, that love and acceptance. And after all, who doesn't want to be loved and accepted? So we start pretending, and we learn that some good things people don't like. Some, like getting good grades. Some people don't like you if you get good grades. And we learn some bad things are kind of cool out there, And so we grow up with sort of a screwed up sense of logic and a screwed up sense of what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And we start pretending and stuffing certain parts of who we are because they weren't acceptable at that moment, but we locked it in. We locked it in because we were in that state of trauma and hypnosis, and we got that suggestion that this feeling, this behavior, this thought is not acceptable. So, okay, well, I don't have it anymore then. Right? So we stuff these parts of ourselves, and some aren't good, some are positive, and psychologists call these things our shadows. And our shadows can be negative, but they can also be positive things about us. I don't draw pictures anymore, right? I don't get good grades anymore. I'm not smart. And we pretend to the point that when we get into adulthood, we believe it about ourselves. I can't draw. I'm not smart, even when it's necessary that I'm smart, and I'm afraid my boss is going to find out just how dumb I am, and I'll get fired. Or they'll demote me, and that'll be so embarrassing. And so we live in these fears of being found out about who we really are when we just made up who we really are in these things. So while psychologists call these things shadows, we call it our buttons. And sometimes we get our buttons pushed. Now, how do these things happen? And why am I talking about buttons at church when we want peace and harmony? Because we want peace and harmony all the time, and we need to find that within ourselves. Now, these buttons that we all have, and we all get pushed, and we're moving into the holidays, the family, who is our greatest loves and our greatest challenge. Because if a stranger says something about us, generally it doesn't bother us because they don't know who we are, right? But if your mother, brother, sister, child says something critical, we tend to fall apart because we care. We care what they think and how they feel about it, and we want acceptance from them. So what happens with these things that we have stuffed so deeply, and they're way down there? Unfortunately, we think we've got control. But unfortunately, these deep things that we've been denying, deep in these roots, are attached to things on the surface. And these things on the surface are our buttons. And they're easily accessible by the people who know us the most, because very often they were the people that helped install them. So they know them, and they know where the button is. But you know what? No one can push a button that doesn't exist, right? And how does that thing exist? It's because some part of whatever that person says or does that totally makes us explode, some part of that we agree with. Something deep inside says, that person just insulted me, and they're right, because I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not a good ball player, I'm not a good painter, I'm not a good artist, I'm not a not. Some part in us agrees with that. In the 4 agreements, it says, don't take things personally, right? That's easy said. That's why the title of this topic is, it's not personal, it's family. Right, how more personal can we get? But it says don't take things personally. And then on the other hand, we hear that everybody is a mirror. So don't take it personally, but everybody's a mirror. Okay, which one is it? Right? Well, what they don't say, and if you really read the book about the agreements, he says, yeah, everybody's a mirror, but not all mirrors are exactly accurate, and they're just a reflection. And mirrors have those faults. You can go into the fun rooms, and sometimes they stretch things this way or this way, and they're not quite clean, so it's fuzzy, or there's a ripple in it. And so even at best, it's just a reflection and not always very good. And secondly, all that it's really mirroring is who you perceive that you are, not who you really are. It's who you perceive. So we've just been talking about how we pretend who we are over time, and now that's who we think. So if someone is rude to you and you perceive of yourself, that little voice inside you says, I'm not very good. Well, gosh, yes, of course they're going to be insulting because I deserve it, because I'm just not as smart as them. I'm just not as good. And I never will be. Because that's what we've decided about ourselves. So these things about reflecting you, and that everybody is reflecting your mirror, and if somebody says something, that's what's in you. If they're rude, you're rude. No, not necessarily. If they're rude, it could be part of you just feels like I'm worthy of being rude to. So what we want to do, and we'll talk a little more about that later, you can get online and you can Google how-tos about how to react when I get my buttons pushed. And every year when we go to do this family thing, we say, okay, I got it down this year. I am not going to explode. I am not going to embarrass myself by screaming and yelling back, right? Every year we say that. I got it this year. I've got it. And even if we accomplish not exploding, what have we done? We've just taken that emotion that comes anyways and stuff it deeper. We just push it deeper and go home feeling yucky, right? Feeling yucky, and we blame it on the wine. You know? But it wasn't the wine, it's what he said. And sometimes all the way there we're thinking, I'm driving over to Brother Tom's for the family event, and, wonder how long he's going to wait this year till he says that all my work, was pretty worthless, and who am I, and he could have done it better, and that, how long is he going to wait? Or is he actually going to say it to my face this year, or is he going to go tell Brother Fred, who also thinks that I'm pretty stupid, about this? And then what are they going to do? And should I just put my foot down and stomp and say I'm not taking this anymore? Or should I just keep quiet? And if I put my foot down and I stomp and they just look at me like I'm silly, no, that'll make me just look like a fool. I really just am not as good as them, so maybe I just better shut up and go home and feel yucky. And by that, time, your stomach's already in knots, or you already have your dukes up ready to walk in. Okay, he's going to take the first swing, this event. So we have two choices. Do we go in, as a victim, or do we go in with our dukes up? There's another way. And like I said, we can Google about the how-tos, but let's first look at what's in there. As we all know, we start with the source, right? What's in there? And we talked about agreeing. So if we look inside, remember this morning when we sang, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I have. Second verse, I am so blessed, I am so blessed, I am so grateful for all that I am. You are a divine spark, made by God out of God's stuff. That incredible, unique, divine expression that chose to have this particular human body to learn and grow and love. Remember, all relationship is about love and growth. And our family gives us both and can withhold both. But within ourselves, God does not withhold either one. We are going to be loved. We are going to grow. We are that divine spark. So let's just take a moment right now. If you're comfortable, close your eyes and say to yourself, I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am. And again, like you really mean it, I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I am. God makes only perfection and beauty. I am perfect and beautiful. And that's the truth. And you can open your eyes. So that is who we are. And knowing that, knowing who we are means we can be with our family. We can be, whether that family is a biological family or an emotional family that we have created. It's anybody that you really care for and are in emotional relationship with. We can be there for that person that says something that is angry, that is insulting, that touches one of those buttons. We can be there knowing who we are and knowing that that statement was really not about who we are, but about what they're feeling at the moment. And what does that person feel? That person feels, I want to be valuable, I want to be loved, I want to be accepted, and I will do whatever I need to in order to do that. And if it means putting someone else down, that may be where they are. Or they just want to look good in front of somebody else. And that happens a lot with our siblings, because we're still, even if our parents have long gone on to the next world, we're still vying for that love and acceptance and thinking we need to compete for it. We don't need to compete for love. It's already here. It's already here. And that's our key, is to know who we are. The oracle at Delphi has carved into the stone, know thyself, 2,500 years ago. Probably 500 years before that is when it got carved in. But for 2,500, 3,000 years, the gods have been telling us to know ourselves. And how do we know ourselves? We know ourselves by knowing that divine spark within. By knowing that we are made by God out of God's stuff. We are perfect expressions of a divine consciousness, exactly the way we are. Which doesn't mean we don't grow, because we do. That's what we're here for. That's the other part of it, right? We continue to grow until we move on to another plane, and we'll probably grow there too. But we are that. And so if we can go to an event saying, I am love, I am this unique divine spark. And whoever doesn't recognize that, they've got some growing to do. And generally, it's not about me anyways. They're speaking from who they are, looking at a mirror that might be reflecting a self-perfection. Because we're all looking at mirrors, not just me, not just you, but the person in front of you, the people all around you. We're all doing the same thing at the same time. So to know ourselves is to remember. So if we can just pull that affirmation out when we're there and somebody says something, that's interesting. I wonder what kind of mirror they're looking in. I'm looking in the mirror of compassion. I wonder what they're feeling right now. Then we can stay in that peace and that love and compassion. And at that point, and only after that, when we can go home in peace and in non-judgment of ourselves, can we decide whether, was there something that person said that I agreed with? What part of me agreed with that? What in me agreed with that comment? With that action, that attitude, that non-acceptance. And if you want to go deeper, you can go into, what was the first time I ever felt that way? And generally we'll arrive upon some time when we were a child and something happened and we took it a certain way. And now as an adult, we can say, you're stupid because you loaded the dishwasher the wrong way? Give me a break. as an adult, when we look back on these things and bring them to the surface, so that button's uninstalled. Another little silly one that I had was when I was little, my hair was even curlier, if you can imagine, and frizzy. And my brother, my older brother, of course, we all have that older brother person, would tease me, especially when he wanted me to comply. And so about 5-6 years ago, all of my brothers were over my house, and they were discussing the market, and one's bullish and one's bearish, and they wanted me, who was in control of a lot of money, to do a certain thing. So my brother looks at me and he said something about my hair. And I looked at him and I went, "Are you kidding? I'm pretty comfortable with it right now. Like that button's been uninstalled, dude. And he looked at me in shock like, "Oh no, I don't get to use that anymore." So we all have those little silly things, looking back, it's a pretty silly thing, right? But when you're, 8, 9, and 10, and 12, those things make a difference. So with that in mind and knowing who we are, we can now get on Google and look up, okay, how do I process getting my buttons pushed? And there are a list of ways of things you can process. And basically they go through the list of, looking at it, what specifically about that made me upset? Is that really true? Really true? Does it serve me to think that that's true? What if it wasn't true? How would I feel then? And we can process that. Byron Katie has 4 questions you ask, basically along that line of, is this really, what was it that upset me? Is it really, really, really true? What would it feel like if it wasn't true? And then knowing the truth about who we are. But we can't do that unless we do it without judgment. And we can't do it without judgment unless we do it with love. Right? Loving ourselves for who we are. And forgiving ourselves for accepting those messages and for changing our behavior way back when. And for hiding all the magnificence and the power that we have in. There's expression, we're not in fear of failure. We're in fear of success because we've been pretending that we can't do that because it wasn't appropriate at some point in time. Well, we can expose all that now with love, knowing just how magnificent each one of us is. That spirit glows from within. And the more we uncover, the more we love ourselves, the more it comes out. So as we go through this season of shopping in crowded places where people are worried they're not getting the right gifts, or they're not getting home in time to make dinner at a reasonable hour, or this and that, and the boss, and they took a day off in order to go shopping, and called in sick, and feeling guilty. So we'll deal with that and with family in a compassionate, loving way, knowing that each one of us is looking at mirrors that are distorted. And all each of us want is love and to be valued and accepted. So I invite you to just remember that you are blessed and to know that we are so grateful for who we are. Thank you.
It's the third Wednesday of the month, so it is Interfaith Night. Please join us this Wednesday as we welcome Derek Smith. He's the chair of the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Claremont. He is a professor in the Department of Literature at Claremont McKenna College. His work focuses on African American literacy culture with a particular interest in poetry. He also teaches and writes about representations of Blackness in American filmic and musical culture. His 2018 monograph, Robert Hayden in Verse, New Histories of African American Poetry and the Black Arts Era, recently won the College Language Association's annual book award. His current scholarship focuses on the poetics of rap and the rise of the genre during the final decades of the 20th century, as well as the connection between critical race studies and the Baha'i faith. Professor Smith regularly teaches courses in American prisons and nurtures activist interest in prisons, in prison studies, and in this pedagogy, which is how to teach, the study of how to teach. We're partnering again with the Children's Foundation of America to bring new toys to kids this holiday season. The Children's Foundation of America supports children in foster care, in crisis centers, and in shelters. We can be the difference. There's a donation box in the foyer with a list of suggested items. Ages are from infant to age 18. Let's fill it up. There's going to be a special grief workshop. It begins tomorrow evening at 6:30 in the library, right over there, at that end of the foyer. Please join us for Love and Grief, the Healing Process. Reverend Tracy will be leading us in this 3-week experience where we will explore loving ways to deal with the grieving process. We will be meeting Mondays from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. on November 18th, November 25th, December 2nd. Flyers for the workshop are on the table in the foyer. Upcoming November events, our gratitude service will be the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. That's November 27th at 7 p.m. over in the chapel. It's going to be in the chapel, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a wonderful way to set the tone for a peaceful, joy-filled holiday season.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's do our affirmation together. We all have it. It's in the box in your program. I choose love over fear and healing over pain.